For our live match today, I've brought you to Packington Somers Fishery and we're on Little Geary's on an evening match. I've only ever been here once before in Wayne Sharman's Lanes Festival and I drew peg 25, had a lovely day, caught some massive F1s, so I thought I've got to come back and film a live match for you. We've drawn peg 21 today, the wind's blowing down. There's probably, it's hard to tell, there's probably about 500 carp in front of me with the wind coming down, so hopefully I'm going to be able to catch a few fish for you. Tactics wise, I'm going to opt to fish shallower casters, maybe mug a few. I've set a method rod up and meet short. One of the big things about my live matches when I'm going to new venues is I've only found out my information via messenger. So even if you don't know many people to be able to pick up the phone, you can use exact same thing that I've used in terms of getting your information. So I think hopefully I'm going to start short mugging, prime my shallow caster line. I've folded the reeds in the edge, throw some casters to those, hopefully we get an off bite there, and then I've got meat short as a last resort. So I'm getting ready to start the match, just sort of looking around. The sun's coming in and out of the clouds and there's a lot of fish, to be honest, to me right. Now normally I'm Mr. Prepared, I've been stopping at tunnel, and big thing, I found out my information from Phil Cannon and when I was here last time, just via messenger, like I said, and he just said to me sort of meat short, casters shallow and maybe a method. And I left my waggler onto the tunnel because I'm just thinking I'm fishing an afternoon match, I'm not going to need those. Silly mistake on my behalf because a lot of the fish are sort of out of pole range, but with the wind I wish I'd have had it, to be honest, but that's a mistake on my behalf. Always come prepared. So I've just sort of baited up. I'm going to start about 12 inches deep on my mugging rig to start with, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a bit of meat short around here. The reason I'm not going to fish it in the deep water because I just think it's so warm and bright, everything's going to be real shallow. So on my short line it's probably 1, 2, so that's the all in. So start my stopwatch, say it's probably just under 4 foot deep, so and make sure that my pole's together because the ones that I've seen swimming around have been massive. So on my short kit, and my long kit, sorry, and my short fore, I'm just going to flick a bit of meat there. And then again, I'll throw some casters just where I folded the reeds down. I'm not going to, I want to feed casters in front of me, but just want to see if there's anything to be mugged to start with. So say the sun keeps coming in and out, I might just start feeding my caster shallow line, but the thing is the carp that I've seen milling around, they're so big, so you don't need many when they're massive. See that sun's coming in and out. I don't want to sort of sit here wasting time, it's sort of going behind the clouds now, so I'm not going to be able to see anything. So I'm just going to take my mugging rig off. I'm going to feed my casters from the word go. Obviously if the wind stopped and I had some mugging opportunities, then I'd start just by mugging. So I'm just going to put a bit of meat on the hook. I say with this short line I didn't want to fish because it's quite deep, I'm going to say about 6 foot roughly in front of me. I don't feel like fishing it in the real deep water. You're going to get any bites there, so I'm just going to get myself comfortable with my elbow on the join of my short fore. Oops. Try and get myself set. So again, if I get a bite, I can strike, but I'm going to need to be able to feed my shallow line. So I may have made that line just a little bit too short. Just try and balance it so I can sort of prime my caster shallow line. So a little sign then. Just make sure I'm on the join. With it being, we've been at Tunnel on the May Festival, so it's Wednesday today, Wednesday evening match, and we was at Tunnel Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the May Festival. And the big thing that's changed, we was out filming, not the weekend just gone, the weekend before, when we went to tunnel on the Saturday, makings on the Sunday, and it was absolutely freezing. But we've had so much warm weather that everything's just popped up. So at tunnel, you haven't been catching a lot in open water shallow, but you've been able to catch shallow to the cover. Again, I don't know this venue particularly well. I've only been here once before on Wayne Sharman's festival, the Lanes Festival. And that day, I fished a method for the first, I'm going to say 45 minutes. I literally watched my match report this morning. Said I caught like about £8 on that first 45 minutes. And then when I went shallow on my casters, how I caught. So I've been even using my own match focus to do me a bit of research, remembering sort of how I caught. So it's just, I'm just trying to balance this. I can't, the angle, because it's sort of at a bit of an angle, just trying to balance my pole the best I can. So obviously if I hold my section, I'm not going to be able to, I might be able to actually, I might try that in a sec. But when you're priming your shallow line, it's so important to be able to, I'm just going to give that a go actually. If it doesn't work, then I can always put my 5 back on, but just with my meat short, I've tried to have a nice short line because I'm on a bit of a slope. So try and get my meat right on my float. And I might say it's a little bit awkward. That's better. Can hold my float a bit stiller now. The most important thing with your shallow fishing is being able to prime it. So on your other lines, when if you're looking to start short, it's not so bad on a method because your hand's free. But if you're looking to start on the pole, try and get it where you can hold the pole and feed. You don't want to get it where you have to put your pole down to be able to feed. Now, speaking to John, the manager here, John Birchill, again sort of the local lads as well, they think it could be quite difficult. So I'm not 100% sure how it's going to fish. One thing that Phil said to me as well, there's a lot of little roach and skimmers in here. So just looking up at the sky, I know roughly where the sun is. So we're going to have a little bit of a gap in the clouds in a minute, and just got to keep your eyes open for when that sun, pops itself back out, because then we'll be able to hopefully see an odd fish. But with it being an evening match, I'm sure at some point the fish will have a feed. See, at Tunnel during their daytime matches, so it's bright and sunny all day because we're fishing 11 till 4, whereas today we're fishing 2:30 till 7:30, so it's still a 5-hour match, but it should go a little bit darker later. And then maybe the fish are so big in here, from what I caught the first time, like the only time I've been here, when I was on peg 25. That looked like a little sign then, my flow, little indication. Yeah, I was going to say the fish were so big, as in the F1s, the average stamp of them was so big, you're not going to, John said like, I think £60 would be a good weight. But here, that could be as little, just F1 wise, that could be as little as 20 fish. They're absolutely massive in here. Could be less than 20 fish, to be honest. 20 fish probably only for about a £3 average. So they average a lot bigger. There's some massive ones in here. Again, I can see an odd one a little bit further, just popping their head out of the water, but I just want to wait until that sun comes. Again, when it's gone flat like this, just keep throwing a few bits of meat. Again, keep throwing my casters to that cover. That was the one noticeable thing at Tunnel, is Didn't catch much in open water. Caught everything sort of shallow to the cover, almost that bit of an umbrella in the peg. So just whilst it's gone flat, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand up and see if I can see anything sort of in front of me. It's all white, whereas to my right the water's quite dark there. I can't see anything sort of really close to me at the moment. Actually, I think I might be able to see one, so I'm going to flick a little bit of meat there. Just get my mugging rig ready. Again, when it's hot and bright, the fish don't really want to feed more the carp, but the F1s, I think they will have a feed at some point. So I'm just going to hook that up. I've not had a bite on that yet. Just starting off with a bunch of dead maggots. So I've got my short 4 on my pole at the moment, but I've got my long 4 and I've got my 16 metres and I've got my dolly butt. So I'm just going to feed my casters out in front of me. There's one there. The problem is when it goes into that white water, I really struggle to see them unless they sort of stick their backs out of the water, whereas when it's dark there you can see them. It's going to be interesting. It's my first go mugging this year, so not too sure if that's followed it. Got a bunch of dead maggots on the hook, so had a bite then. That's one. Problem is, see, where it's quite dark, I can't see the heads. So I'm just going to drop it in. So I've just got a bunch of dead maggots on the hook at the moment. I don't know what the best hook bait's going to be. Normally worms can be quite good for me. So I'm sure there's one there. Just try and drop it and make a bit of a plop. They might turn for it. Oh, I don't know if I spooked that one. So it's quite difficult to see them at the moment, but I know there's hundreds there. You're probably watching this thinking, Paul, there's one like 2 metres to your left or 2, and I literally can't see a lot at the moment. No, there's a few gone a little bit further that way. Just pop 16 metre section. Might have spooked them the other way. Oh. Looking around, see if I can see any. If you look, where one thing that's really interesting is, can you see where I've been feeding my casters shallow? See it fizzing up like mad. So that's giving me a bit of hope. So it might be a bit of a slow start to start with, but again, keep throwing a few casters down the edge. One rule here, we got, you know, when it comes to sort of your shallow fishing, is you're allowed to fish a jigger, but you're not allowed to overshot your rig. So I'm not going to be able to tuck your rig underneath the reeds. So I'm going to see one then, but they might have spooked that yet. They've just spooked that carp. There was one there, and I thought I don't want to run out. I'll try and let the ducks go away, and wait for another one to pop up. So at the moment, looking around, I can't really see much being caught. Keep flicking a bit of bait on all my lines. That's one thing, sort of when it's, you know, hot and bright, if they don't want to feed, might not get millions of opportunities, but they'd be big, as in the carp. But I'm sure I'll be able to catch some shallow one casters. It looks perfect, sort of wind's coming down, it's quite cloudy, obviously a little bit of sun. So, moment, tempted, I might even have a little go on my method. So looking around, I can't see, I can't see obviously the other side of the lake, but no one's catching many at the moment. So I think that's going to be our next port of call. So there's some little roach that have just taken me maggots. So I might just opt for a bit of worm. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our ground bait ready. I've just got some coarse carp. I've got some sort of fishery micros. I've got my hook lengths. So I just feel like my best line today is going to be my shallow line. So start off with just over my 3-inch hook length. Get my mould out. So when I listened back to my match report this morning, I did start off on this on Wayne's Festival and caught a few F1s sort of the first 40 minutes. So we're just going to put 4 dead red maggots on. Normally like 3, but I just think, the fact that there are a few little roach milling around, 4's a bit of a cruder hook bait. I just feel like this is probably going to be my best chance of getting a bite, but also what this is going to allow me to do is be able to, for me to be able to feed my shallow line, which I think is going to be my most important line today. So we're picking it up. Sun's popped out. That was one thing as well when I was when I listened back to my match report, was where I was casting in our match. I listened, and it said had a couple of casts that were a bit too tight. Right, so I'm just going to try and find somewhere to be able to wedge my rod. Had a couple of chucks that were a bit too tight, had a couple of signs. I don't really like doing this, but right, just get that sorted. A couple of chucks that were a bit too tight, and then when I come off about a metre, I started catching a few F1s. So I'm going to do just sort of try and settle myself down now. I think I'm just going to, unless like a few drift up a little bit more, I think what I'll do is I'm just going to feed my shallow line. I'm going to fish this method feeder for probably the first 45 minutes now, looking at it. Again, if any carp drift down or I see a sign in the edge, then I might have a little go mugging. But I think now is the best thing that I can do is just like prime my shallow line. I think that's going to be my best chance of lining some fish up. And then I'm just going to fish this method feeder for a bit. And hopefully, we will start catching an odd fish. I'm sure we will. Say the first 40 minutes whilst I prime my shallow line, I feel like that's going to be the most important thing. So just sit here now, prime my shallow line up, say I have regular chucks on my method. Hopefully we get a bite or 2 on this, but I'm sure when we go on our shallow line we will catch some fish on that. So keep plodding along, and hopefully it won't be too long we'll start getting a few bites. So since I left you, I actually got broke on my method, so I picked up and got me rod rest out, and I've had a couple of little indications from roach. But as I was sat there, I see 2 F1s top right where I was feeding. So we're literally 34 minutes into the match, and we've just caught our first F1. So pop it in our net. I've seen John Birchall on 25 catch 2 on a method, and I think the lad on what would be 27 maybe catch 1 on a waggler. But I'll be honest, I've not got off to the best of starts regarding what I thought, with it being, you know, whilst we were setting up, just try and come back maybe a little bit just where I can group my casters best. I think that's one thing when you're fishing shallow, the most important thing is fishing where your bait groups best. So at the moment I'm just fishing a jigger, because again when I listen back to me match report from when I was on 25, it said caught really, really well on a jigger early when there was some fish there because we primed it, and then a fixed rig was best, sort of my long line winter Maggie rig. So I'm still feeding in the edge, because again if that comes good, it'd be really, wow, look at the size of that thing. Oh my days. Oh, I love you, look at that. Is ridiculous. I've got to hold that up. Bloody hell. Look at the size of that thing. And I don't even think that's a big one for it. I was going to kiss him, but he didn't want to kiss me back. Right, so our net rules are £60. So say our first fish was £2. I'm going to say that was £4. Going to tidy up my tray a sec. So I've got my towel. So those 2 came, can't bend me okay a little bit. Have to bite it back into shape. Excuse me. So at the moment I'm fishing a 2 foot deep jigger rig, and I've just got a 4-inch hook length and a bit of a worm on the hook. So both fish that I've caught have been, what I'm trying to work out when I'm doing this is work out at what point am I getting the bite, because I haven't got to stop above my float. You don't have to have one there. So I'm just trying to work out the depth. Let's just hold my float if I can, and just lower it down. Say both those bites came quite deep, sort of about there. There's what. Oh. Right, I think I might have a go on my fixed rig. Again, coming higher. Might just have to come back a little bit. One nice thing, obviously, with your jigger and your overshotted rig, there is they hook themselves. So I'm just gonna feed my casters. What I need to do is I need to wipe my glasses, because that last one splashed everywhere. I'm sort of struggling to see out of them a little bit. We've got £6 plus, I'm going to say £3. £9. Got a feeling this hook length might be a little bit too long for this depth. I might change this to a 3-inch hook length. Got a 4-inch hook length at the moment. But yeah, the rules here say you're not allowed to overshot your rig, but you're allowed a jigger, and there's no line limit. So you're allowed to slap, you're allowed to tap, you're just not allowed to fish an overshotted rig. And that was a perfect bite. This is what I was hoping for, I've got to be honest. This is what it was like last time. It was absolutely beautiful. So what we got, £9, is that right? £9. Probably £3. God, they're so big. See, that one's right down its throat. I'll put that in 12. Stick with that one. That's a nice thing with a bit of a worm. So the reason really I'm opting for a bit of a worm, I love fishing worms when I'm fishing caster shallow, because if you're getting an odd tiny fish, you can just change the size of the worm that you got on the hook. So, feed me bait, a few less casters. Oh, just lower it down slowly, just see. Give it a flick. Yeah, if I remember back rightly, I caught quite well on my jigger to start with, and then my longer line Winter Maggie was the best rig. I think what'll be important today is, I think it's going to be the sun. If the sun comes out when it goes dark, I think it'll be really good. So I missed a couple there, so would do. I'm just going to change this hook length, because I think with how shallow they are, it's a bit too long. And I think that's always the way. If you think about something, you're better off just doing it. Had I done it when we said, we might have hooked a couple more. So at the moment I've just got a bulk, but what I might do, again, I might just string my shot out slightly, because I know that works quite well for me. But just stick with a bulk now. If they're coming, it's quite shallow that we're fishing when we're slapping our rig. If they're coming quite high, slap my rig. Feed my casters, slowly lower it down with my bait. There's one. And I think when they're a little bit deeper, having that longer hook length's good, but the whole point of this is trying to get the fish to hook themselves. So sort of the cruder you can fish, the biggest bulk they take, as close to the hook as possible. It's just all about, I think, is like how much rope do they need to be able to hang themselves. What I've got to make sure as well is they're so big that that is ridiculous. These fish are just daft. It's like I don't even know how big that one was. Where were we up to? 12 plus 4, 16. This is going to be the bit for me. 16, I think. Oh. So, yeah, just now I'm just going to be, obviously, if I'm getting bites on this, I'm just going to concentrate on doing this. So again, just slap my rig a couple of times. Feed my casters. I think the one nice thing with a jigger, again, a bit like your long line dibber rig, is you can be fishing quite shallow, but have your pole tip away from the water. I think obviously when it's, I think my float's just got stuck there. There's some crap on the line. It looked like my float was sinking, but I tested it and it didn't, so. It's a nice thing with these Frank Ross Rick jiggers, because they sit quite low, like the float's basically irrelevant, it's not doing anything. When I tested it at Tunnel, obviously the rules here, what I was saying, like you're allowed to fish your jigger, you're just not allowed to overshot your float. But when I tested it at Tunnel this morning before we left, sort of 4 number 10s, and it was absolutely perfect. See there now where it's gone a little bit brighter, it might have just dropped down a little bit. Flick it up, lower it, there's one. So when I'm fishing like this, what I'm trying to, as mad as it sounds, is like the flow is irrelevant. What I'm trying to work out is where in relation is my pole tip above the water as to when I'm getting a bite. I don't want a float stop on, you know, or a back shot if I don't have to, because then I've got weight above the float, which we don't want there. We just want to be straight off of our bulk. Right, try and settle down a little bit. My elastic's just in a bit of a knot. Oh, that one's popped out. So 3:19. So 45 minutes in. Say since we went shallow, we was nowhere blanking. So it's well worth, even though like that first half hour, we should have caught that one that broke me on my feeder, but that's my own fault because I didn't set my rod rest up. But the importance of that priming it just for half an hour, and you see what I mean, like, you know, when we was fishing, so just hold it there. If it's a carp, might be game over for our hook length. But yeah, for that first sort of half hour, 40 minutes, the catapult's just broke there, but it's fine because we've got spares. So again, that's another thing at this time of the year. Obviously you're going to be using them a lot, so just make sure I've got sort of 5 of my main catapults. Again, I know I do a little bit more fishing than most, but that way, if one breaks, it doesn't matter, I can just pick the other one up, just shorten them, obviously when we get back home. But yeah, what I was going to say was that first half hour of priming it, even though you're not getting a bite on anything else, you're trying to gather the fish there, so when you go in, obviously there's some fish there waiting. I mean, the conditions are absolutely perfect today for us. Warm wind blowing down. So, what was we up to? I've lost count already. 19, I think, 20. Let's call it 20. So I brought 6 nets with me, £60 net rule. We ain't gonna go anywhere near that, so. And ship out. Couple of slaps, sort of hold my float, see if anything comes to it. Again, now what I'm trying to do is just trying to fire my bait like up so it lands in a lump, and at the moment I'm just holding where my 13 joins my 14 metre section, but if it drops a bit shorter once I've had a few feeds, then I'll fish there. I'm just trying to feed my bait at the moment and see where it lands best, and then wherever it lands, that's where I'm gonna fish, if that makes sense. I'm not deliberately trying to fish at a certain distance. I'm just trying to feed my bait, and where my bait lands in a nice big lump, that's where I'm gonna be fishing. So £20 at the moment, smaller one, but oh, I think that was in the mouth, but it happens. But yeah, I think now it's just a case of just experimenting with my bit of worm as well, you know. Sometimes if you put a too small a bit on, excuse me, and you can wait longer for bites, and you think, oh, there's no fish there, and it's just because you put a too small a piece of worm on. But again, you can put a too big a piece of worm on. So when I'm fishing with worms, just trying to work out the right size bit. So again, just slowly lower it down, just give it an odd flick. Sort of, if I'm going to flick my rig like that, then I'll probably just move my bulk up a little bit higher. So again, just keep lowering it down. That was one thing when we were sort of flicking our rig a little bit. with our 4-inch hook length, we did get an odd bite. And it's early days at the moment. The most important thing is just, you know what I was saying about your catapults going. This is just where I've been using them at tunnel, obviously for 3 days. That's what I mean. We've gone through 2 in the space of minutes, but I know a couple of them won't go. So again, feed me bait once, feed me bait twice. So if I stop getting bites on this rig, I know that I'm sort of fishing 2 foot down to my pole tip. It's probably only where I'm catching most of them, 18, 20 inch. So I don't get why that one's come off. Just having a mad 5 minutes. We all have them. So go back out again. Let's try and remember roughly 20 pound in my head. Again, flip my rig over twice. So you don't normally foul look them. We're having a mad 5 minutes. We're down to our last 2 catapults. We'll be alright. I've got my incredible one behind me. That thing don't break. But that's just the problem this time of the year when the sun gets to them. Right. So 20 pound, 50 minutes in. We're doing alright. Just having a mad couple of minutes. 3. See, that one's popped out in the net as well. See, this is the downside of what's nice, again, like where you're allowed to do what you want. See, the fact that that's happened, I feel like I haven't got a big enough bulk now. I genuinely feel like that's what it is. But again, where you're allowed to overshot your rig, like at tunnel, it's fine. Anywhere where you can overshot your rig's fine. Just use the same flow, just keep adding more shot. So again, a couple of slaps, make a bit of noise, because we have caught a couple, like quite shallow. So again, feed me bait, it's better. Just slowly lower it down. The rig's all tight and straight now, so. Just give it a flick. But I remember this was the case when I fished in that festival, that after priming it I went in and caught a few on a jigger, but my fixed rig, my long line sort of winter Maggie rig, was better. So again, if I don't get any bites, feed my bait. I'm just going to come back in. I'm going to have a go on that rig because I just want to know. So I think what we'll do, I'm going to carry on sort of plodding along. I'm sure from now on we will just continue to get a few bites. So I'm just going to hook this rig up at 18 inch, just off my back shot. What we do whilst we're filming, I'll go out, slap this rig over a couple of times and just see if we can get one, because I'm sure the one thing with this rig is you do miss bites, but sort of when there's just an odd one in your peg, when you're not allowed to overshot your rig, sort of you will get bites on this rig. So like a little indication, and just with that wind, might just have my back shot just a little bit too close. So I'm just going to come back in, move my back shot up a little bit further. So just have a go with this rig, just alternate my rigs now. Obviously we've caught a few on our jigger, I know roughly what depth I'm fishing, so can always have a go with a short line rig. I just want to have a quick look on this rig. So I know the only one thing is there's a lot of like smaller roach and skimmers in this lake, so might miss an odd bite from those. Again, if you've got something in your head and you want to try it, rather than waiting, you're better off just trying it. You know, worst case scenario, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. If it's no good, then I just go back on our jigger or one of our other rigs. So I'm going to do, I just carry on plodding along, but I'm sure now we just carry on getting a few bites. Shallow. Gonna have a catch up. Oh, just lost one. And I think roughly I've got just over £50, or let's just say £50. And I caught a few on my jigger, which is what I'm fishing at the moment, just obviously lowering it down. And then I went on my short line rig, and to be honest, my bit of worm's the best hook bait. So my best rig, because I need to take like a number 12 shot off me little 3B8 Winter Maggie, and that's sort of perfect when they're 16 inch deep and less, but I'm catching them around about 2 foot. So sort of my rig that's just over 2 foot, I've shortened it down to 18 inch, which is my cut down 4B8 Winter Maggie, and I caught a few on that, and then a few on my long line sort of 4B8 Winter Maggie. Just getting sort of an odd small fish, so I just thought I'd have a go on the jigger, but trying to fish it almost like an overshotted rig. And I'm adamant today that, oh, little skimmer that one. I'm adamant today, if you could fish an overshotted rig, I don't know how many you'd catch. They're just great big uns. And when there's a few in your peg, it's brilliant. Obviously, you'll be able to catch them sort of on your normal rigs, and I'm sure we still get an odd bite on our normal rig. But I just think when you don't think there's loads of fish in your peg, they're so crafty, these big ones. And that's normally, to be honest, what your overshotted rig's normally best for. So this rig's just set at 2 foot touching my pole tip. So I'm just sort of lowering it down to my pole tip, feeding my casters twice, and then just sort of flicking it in and around 2 foot. I've got my same hook length on, my 3 inch hook length, but I've just moved my bulk up to 4 inch. It's just sort of when I'm flicking it up and down, got a bit of a, you know, bit of a longer fall for my hook length. I'll be honest, sort of when I normally fish an overshotted rig, I normally just tend to hold it there once I found the depth that I can catch them at. But I've been trying to experiment with this sort of like, basically sort of Christian Kieran's way of sort of flicking your rig up and down. And it is better, to be honest. I think when you've got a lot of fish in your peg, oh, little small fish fell off. When you've got a lot of fish in your peg, then just sort of holding it at one depth can work well. So I'm just going to go on my 2 foot 4B8 Winter Maggie. So when it's bright and flat, I think this rig's brilliant, but the downside of it is obviously, I'm not complaining that I've got all the wind in my face, 1,000,000% not. That's why, you know, there's some fish here. But I think them big ones, they don't like coming underneath the pole tip. And when I first went on this, sort of flicking the rig in, the nice thing with this is, obviously if you get a bite as it's falling, you can see it, and you're going to see if you sort of miss any bites on the way down, to give you an idea of, you know, if there's any fish in the peg. Whereas, again, when, you know, we first primed it and went on our jigger, because there was so many there, obviously you can lower it down through your casters that you're loose feeding, and that's a brilliant way of doing it when you feel like there's plenty of fish in your peg, but just feel like, I know there's be an odd big one. There's a carp. So if an odd one starts loitering around, I will have a go with our mugging rig. I have caught one little carp on this rig as I sort of slapped it over. You see there's a little boil. As I slapped it over, sort of as it's settling, it's grabbed the bait on the way. Just, oh, I had to say, just like that. That's what's nice with this rig, is so you can fish that little bit deeper, and if anything grabs it on the way down, you'll be able to see it, because it's a relatively light flow. But that's why I've always got 1,000,001 rigs set up, because depending on the conditions, you don't know what one's going to be best, and as the conditions change, obviously you want to change your rig to suit. I've got a long line dibber rig set up, and if I start seeing like an odd, just because you're not getting some bites sometimes with them big ones, don't always mean to say that they're deeper than what you're fishing. Sometimes they can be shallower. So again, just slap my rig over a couple of times. That was one thing that, from reading or listening to our Match Focus mid-match report, it said there that I thought it was best like slapping a bit more than I was on the day. And again, if it's going bright, it's not to say every day is going to be the same, but it gives you a rough idea of, oh, that looked like a bite from a better fish. Sort of, I have hooked up, obviously, a few small fish. You tend to know with the small fish, they're like little pecks. Whereas a lot of the time when you miss a bite from a better fish, you normally get a better indication. Again, I'm looking up, sort of I can see John catching a few. Obviously I don't know what's happening around the other side, but I'm sure at some point, so they will have a bit of a feed up. I'm sure they will. So when it goes to like that a little bit cooler, I just think it's always the way at this sort of time of the year, when they first get that little bit of sun. See, there's one top to my peg. Just want to sun themselves a lot of the time, and then when it cools down a little bit, we'll have a little bit of a feed then. But all you can do is just keep feeding, keep sort of working through your depths. Say they are so big, it's just a bit of stuff there, so I'll just ship out a little bit further just so I can slap my rig in. But yeah, they're so big, you don't need millions of bites. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to feed a few casts. I'm just going to come back in. So this rig's set at 2 foot at the moment. Definitely a bigger bit of a worm seems to be a bit better. So I'm just shallow it down to sort of 19 inch. But again, because it's a little light flow, it's not just going to sink and settle really quickly at sort of that depth. So you're still fishing from, obviously, as you slap your rig over, as your rig's falling, you're still fishing through that bit that's obviously a little bit shallower. So again, just keep feeding my casters. I had a quick look in my right hand edge, and my float was just like dipping, like there was a few little roach there. So I've just sort of stopped feeding it, I'll be honest, because I'm getting bites in the open water. I just feel like I'm better off spending my time spending my time doing this. See, when that wind comes down, I feel like now they've got that cover, so they're more likely to come underneath the pole. So even though I'm not catching them, I'm adamant they're in my peg. They're just big, wise, crafty. And I think it's like anything, when you get a number of fish feeding in your peg, no matter how big they are, you know, if they're competing for the bait, they're sort of relatively easy to catch. But when you've maybe only got one or two, you know, I'm sure I probably have more than one or two feeding in the peg. But if they're that little bit deeper and there's only a couple in your peg, you know, they can be quite hard to catch sometimes. Not to say that they're not catchable. So a few little... This is the other thing, obviously you've got to work out. It's all well and good, I might be missing bites, but they might be from small fish. They could be from F1s, but I don't think they are. You know, there might be an odd one there, but... So, just because you're missing a few bites, if they're them skimmers, sort of little roach, might just be worth just dropping down a little bit. The main thing is just got to keep feeding. Roll my rig. Just fish it for a little bit. If I feel like now I feel, there's one, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm at the best depth. If you don't feel like you're at the best depth, just drop down. But the fact that we have caught one, so I'm looking up and I can see John catching a few. So, you know, there's some there. A smaller one. But that time, obviously, we missed a few bites. So, what I'll do, I know I'm at, say, 19 inch deep, hooked up there, so I can pick up me shorter long line rig. That's at 19 inch as well. I'm just going to deepen it up just by an inch. So with the wind, when there's no wind, you haven't got to worry about, well, within reason, your length of line, but obviously if it is windy, one, your float's going to be moving. It's just a little bit harder to be able to hold your line nicely. Little sign then, just by having a bit of a shorter line. One, it's easier to be able to control my float, stop it drifting around a little bit. So you'd be able to see I've got like 2 number 8 back shots. My float dips. Just lift it up and drop it back in. Just got to keep picking up your rigs and just experimenting with them. But when I read I know I keep going back to it, but that's what it said. See, I'm sure that's like, I'm sure I'm missing a odd bite from an F1, but there's a few of those in the peg. My worm's still on. But this is where, obviously when it's allowed, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but this is when an overshotted rig is deadly, when you've just got an odd big one in your peg. See there, one just swirled past where I was feeding. But that's when your overshotted rig's deadly. See, there's one. Again, just slap my rig over again. Just got to keep working. You'll have spells when you catch sort of 2 or 3 and 2 or 3 chucks, and spells where it's not as good. But I think we're doing okay. I say it's hard to know for sure how we're getting on, but from what I can see, obviously I can see John catching a few. I know he's fishing a jigger, what looks 6. He keeps like lifting and dropping his rig with his pole tip right next to the water. Again, just pick my rig up. Seen an odd fish just pass, so again, I know they're so reluctant to come underneath the pole tip. Though the water looks quite coloured, it's still quite clear. And when it's that real bright, they just don't like coming underneath the pole tip. And I'm getting a few signs from smaller fish. So it might just be a case of, again, going back on my jigger. When I first went on this fixed rig, after being on my jigger, I didn't get many signs from like small fish. When it went under, it was from an F1. Just like as you flick your rig in there, it just sits. When it went under, it's just an F1. And the only thing, what I might do, again, depending on the time, if I'm fish, I've got to keep an eye on the time, but if I fish for, say, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes and I don't catch one, what I might be better off doing is chucking my method back out, obviously, and just re-priming my peg for sort of 20 minutes. So the worms come off. So, just go back on our jigger for a minute, because that seemed a little bit better. So hook that up. Pick up the right one, because I was catching, say, not loads, but I've been getting an odd one on this. So I'll go back on my 2 foot rig. I've got one set at 2.5 foot and 3 foot, because I would guess it's probably 6 foot maybe where I'm fishing. So say 2 foot still reasonably shallow. So feed me bait. Feed me bait again, and just lower it down. There's one. See, that's the thing, you can have both. You can't fish it, Paul, so stop talking about it. You just got to do the best you can do within the rules. But you see, like with your fixed rig, when it's just F1s in your peg, it's lovely, because obviously they're catchable with it. But when there's obviously some roach in the peg and you're missing bite, it's hard to know what they are. But when you've just got on, say, an odd big unit like that sat in your peg, they know the script. I don't think I would actually, because I think it'd blow our brains, but I'd love to be able to, you know, sort of have a camera under the water now, and I bet there's thousands of them there. You'd be sick, wouldn't you? See, now obviously where it's gone calm, say John's still catching an odd, and he's catching them on a jigger. So I just know when I fished last time, again, this is where, like, obviously every day is different. I caught really well on my fixed rigs, so maybe that's why I've got it a little bit in my head, because I caught early on a jigger that day, but after that it was no good. So that's the thing, it's brilliant obviously having information, but you've got to be careful. That one's just up just outside the face. Obviously you've got to be careful that you're not trying to sort of refish that match, so you're aware of what worked best that day. Just got that little bit, that's the thing now, it's getting to that time of year where that sort of white fluff gets on your line, where the hole's relatively small. That stopped me float sliding nicely. But yeah, that's the thing, you can obviously have it in your mind what works well at a certain time, but that's not to say it's going to be the same the next time you come. So again, just swing my rig out, sort of lift it up, let it sort of come back in underneath my pole tip, feed my casters, again feed my casters, and just slowly lower it down. I'm just going to flick it up just a little bit higher and see. It might not be a case that they want the pole tip touching the water today. I've caught a few doing this, to be honest. See, this is where obviously the difference, you know, it's well worth talking about the difference between your sort of overshotted rig compared to your jigger. Sort of as you lower it, if the wind catches it and blows it, it's going to sort of push your rig at different angles. So lower it down, just hold it, see if I get any signs, lift it back up. I think it's important to remember with this, keep regimented in your head, sort of keep feeding twice, trying to keep your timing sort of the same, sort of feeding I would guess about twice every 20 to 25 seconds roughly. That's the one thing, I'll be honest, that I sort of struggle with this is, I think when you're fishing a normal rig, you know, you're getting bites, miss an odd bite, so at times you think you're catching quicker than you are, whereas with this, it's just there, fish on. I've not missed a bite, I've not seen a bite, don't even know if I'm fishing at the right depth, and then every now and again, there's one on, yeah, wasn't too sure if that one was hooked right. Because obviously it jumped out of the water. Just slide my bulk up a little bit further. So I'm still fishing with a bit of a worm on the hook at the moment. I've got some bands that I can hook to be able to fish sort of banded caster or pellets, but I'll be honest, and normally when I'm fishing with casters I always find a bit of a worm best. So again, feed my casters. Slowly lower it down, just give it a flick. But yeah, we are looking at it 2 hours and 8 minutes in, so I think probably got £55 roughly. I feel like we're doing okay. I slowed down a little bit, so just looking around, gone a bit calmer, but I think that's probably going to be my only change in the next maybe half hour, depending on how many bites I'm going to get. If it slows down and I stop, you know, getting any signs, I might just pick that method rod back up, sort of fish that for 20 minutes, just re-prime this line, because that's only ever going to make it better, it's never going to make it any worse. And then maybe just without my pole over the water for a sort of 15-20 minutes, re-prime it, gather some fish there. And quite often, you know, in that 15 minutes you was fishing it, say you might catch 2 or 3 on it, whereas if you come off it 15-20 minutes, when you drop back in you can see how quickly you know you can catch them fish when they're in numbers in your peg. But I think what we do, we're just going to carry on plodding along the way we're going, just keep trying to put some fish in the net, and we'll have a catch up soon. We're going to have a catch up. We're 3 hours and 23 minutes into the match, and since I left you it was, you know, quite slow for a little bit, and then I had a good little spell on my long line dibber rig. I've just been messing around going through all my rigs. Before I done that actually, what I done is I picked up my bigger jigger rig, so my longer jigger rig, it's the same. So 2.5 foot rather than 2 foot, the one that we was fishing. And so a little bit of a longer line, and what I done is I just strung me 4 number 10 cubes out and just sort of holding it and then feeding. As I'm holding it, literally probably only like 10 inch deep, I caught quite a few like that. And I think what it is, they just, as always, they hate coming underneath the pole tip. And so we caught a few on our jigger rig, and I thought, well, if they're that shallow, excuse me, I'll just have a go on my long line dibber rig. And that was excuse me, that was really, really good when it was calm, because you can obviously slap your rig. Just got a little bit of a tangle there. You can slap your rig and then just literally hold onto your back shots, and you're not really, to be honest, you're not really looking at your float, you're just sort of trying to look at your back shots once you slap your rig in. And obviously if you see your float go under, then, you know, lift it up and drop it back down. But the wind got up and I just started missing a few bites. So literally as we started, I was at 14 inch deep on my long line dibber rig. So I've just picked up my short line rig, or basically literally like an inch away from my pole tip. And we've gone in and we've caught a couple. So weight wise, you know what I'm like, I'm Bobo. I think I've got, concentrate pull. I don't know if that one was foul hooked, I don't think it was, but I changed my bit of worm. So I think I've got maybe 120 pounds. So I feel like we're doing okay. A good spell on that long line dibber rig. I think that's definitely been the best rig. Well, saying that, our jigger rig strung out, that was good. But then our long line dibber rig was really good. Again, just sort of just settled myself down. I think we've all, you know, as always, when you go into a venue that you don't know, although the fishing's quite similar, every venue's got its own sort of unique personality. So when you're going somewhere, obviously you know quite well, you know the best methods to catch them, how much to feed, how often to feed. Again, like a rough idea with the depths. And it caught me out a little bit, I have to be honest, that I think they were a little bit shallower sooner than what I fished for them. But that's the thing, it's all those little bits of experience that you're picking up sort of every time you're going. So I think I've roughly got about 13 pound in this net, I think. So I'm only going to about 40 pound. Sort of the limits here 60 pound. I just don't like going anywhere near it if I can, you know, if you can help it. So, just a lovely fish. So 13 plus that one, 3, 16. But yeah, it's been nice. Really, really enjoyable. You sort of know, like the conditions today, I literally couldn't have drawn any better. Sort of the wind coming down. I've probably got more space than anyone, which is always nice. And I think it was always going to be only a matter of time before this was going to come good for us. And so when I fished in my May festival, like looking back at me, and that's what it's so good for, sort of looking back and seeing how you caught. And that day I caught, I think 8 or 10 pound on the feeder first 40 minutes, and then I just fished shallow. I did throw some worms and casters short, but it just felt like everything was shallow, and they're so big, you know, you're not going to catch one every single chuck, otherwise you'd have an absolute daft weight. but it seemed to be the best way of fishing. So I'm just fishing at 14 inch deep now. I'll be honest, I'm a lot more, I think it's always the case, you know, as I'm learning, and if there's things that I'm struggling with, you know, I keep you updated. But whenever I'm fishing with me fixed floating rigs, I'm an happy bunny, you know. I almost feel settled down because I find it so much easier to be able to read. But no doubt about it, that jigger overshotted rig is unbelievable. Like a lot of venues, they might not allow your overshotted rig, but you're always allowed a jigger. So like White Acres here, you know, there's a few places that ban an overshotted rig and allow a jigger. So it's definitely something I've said to myself this year, I want to be able to master it, because if you can do them all really, really well, you're going to be obviously given a good draw and some fish in your peg. You're going to be an hard person to beat. So I think that makes that £19. It's nice now that they're coming underneath the pole tip, and I think that's the difference. Like early on when they're sat, when they're sat that little bit deeper, that's when using your sort of sinking rigs, be it a jigger or an overshotted rig, when they want to be that little bit deeper, they're so hard to catch on a floating. Oof. Missed that one. That was my own fault, that. Not really concentrating, so getting in my head, I'm thinking I've got £19. It happens, you're always going to lose an odd un. You try our best not to. But again, on that subject, you've got to try, and I know it's difficult, especially when you lose a big un, but what's done's done. You can't change it. You just got to try and say to yourself, you know, not ideal, but hopefully try my best to net the next one. So again, feed me bait. I have sort of sped me bait up a little bit in terms of the regularity that I'm feeding. Now they're coming a little bit higher. Again, just give it a little rattle. They're coming a little bit higher. I'm starting to feed just a little bit more regular. So again, always try and give it the time and go through your feeding again. I always think this now is sort of the best time to be able to get a bite, leave your rig still as your bait hits the water, and then fish rise up for it. A lot of the time that's when you're going to catch them. But yeah, it's just been a nice day, just sort of working through my rigs. That's why I always set a lot up when it's shallow fishing, because you can find at different times of the day different rigs are better. Sort of when it's windy, your short line rigs will be really, really good, whereas when it's calm, I've had it so many times where you sat here at a certain depth, not really catching, only to go on a longer line rig and immediately start catching them. So yeah, my head, just remember again, like my £16. See, now that wind's just dropped a little bit. Feed me bait. Better feed, second feed. Just leave me rig still. See if I get any indications on my float. And the nice thing here now, we're fishing such a short line, is if anything grabs it, it should just hook theirself. See, their wind's just catching my pole a little bit. But yeah, looking around, so I can't see that side of the lake because the island's in the way, but I feel like we're doing okay from what I can see. So again, feed me bait. Feed me bait again. If I don't get one, I'm going to come back and go back on my long line rig. There's one. I think that's the biggest thing when you're doing this, is sort of try and feel like, remember your catch rate if you can, and if you feel like you're slowing down a little bit, just pick up another rig. And it's not always a case of it being deeper. Sometimes it can be the length of line that you're fishing, especially when it's sort of bright. So 19, that one's hooked just outside of its face. I can't even pick it up. It just popped out. So 19, say 22. So just where it's gone calm. Pop that rig down, pick up my long line dibber rig. Just go back out on this. Again, just messing around with my size of worm, but it's roughly 3/4 of an inch. And that way, once you've crimped it, it will sort of grow a little bit, if that makes sense. Once you've nipped it off, so again, like slap my rig twice, and with this, lift up, and I'm looking at my back shot, not really my float. If my float goes, obviously I'll lift it, but what you're trying to do with this rig is sort of with your back shot, is get the fish to hook itself against the back shot. Like, you will have it an odd time when your float goes under and you lift up and there's one on, but most of them, they just pull the pole over. They don't want to come underneath the pole. Like, this is a deadly way of fishing. But my little routine with this rig is just before I'm about to feed again, just give it a couple of slaps, make a bit of noise. Something might grab it on the way down. So now, just before I'm about to feed, slap my rig over twice, lift up. Sort of with this rig, I've got to follow it the way that I slap it. Don't want to drag your rig out of position. There was a little sign then, so lift it, drop it, and now get myself comfortable. And then go through my feeding again. Again, if the bites just slow down a little bit, might just have to pick up another rig, just a touch deeper. Not a lot deeper, but I'm not getting bites. Again, I think my next rig that I'll pick up will be my little 3x8 Winter Maggie, but probably set about 16 inch deep. And that's just got two number 12, so it takes quite a long time to full. So again, you've still got that, with that rig, even though you're fishing sort of 16 inch deep, you're slapping it over, you've still got that chance of, if the fish are shallower, and you're slapping your rig over and you're getting your bite then. But sometimes, sort of slapping it over, this is when you're going to get your bite with a little light rig as it's falling, not necessarily once it's static or when you're feeding. Again there. And that's been my best sort of floating rig up until now. So £22 roughly in our net. Got to keep telling myself, what I'm like with my net limits. I just lose track. To be honest, I think white hydro would have probably been better for these, but draw rigs left over from tunnel. Again, that one I'm not even going to entertain trying to lift it up. So 22, so 25, and we've got sort of nearly an hour and 20 minutes left. Again, clean my rig off. So we just going to keep sort of doing what we're doing now, and hopefully we can still get an odd bite to the end. So I'm just going to keep doing what we're doing. So stop getting bites, so like that, the wind changes a little bit, then just a case of messing around with our rigs to try and, you know, find the best way of catching them. So keep plodding along, and oh, you little rat bag. I know, don't they? Yeah, keep plodding along, and hopefully, you know, we carry on catching a few till the end. I'll be honest, I've stopped for a long time now. I haven't fed any meat short. I haven't been throwing any casters in the edge, because I just think everything just wants to be out in the lake, swimming around, sunning themselves. And I think this is the best way for me to, you know, be catching them. So if I ever felt like I was going to come off this line, if anything, I'd just chuck my method back out to the island, because one, I've got a good chance of catching a carp or two doing that, because I'm fishing in the shallow water. But the other good thing about it is then I can re-prime this shallow line. But yeah, we're getting some bites, so just keep plodding along till the end now. We'll have a catch up just before the end. So we're going to have a catch up, and as you can see, I'm still fishing shallow. The last hour or so it has sort of slowed down a little bit, just as you'd expect. It's getting a little bit cooler. I'm still getting an odd bite. I literally just lost one, and I could see when I was going to net it that it was hooked underneath its chin, so I've just sort of shallowed up a little bit. And the other thing is I've lost a little bit of track running nets. You know what I'm like. So I've literally just got up and popped another one in. We've only got sort of 14 minutes left, but I had another one behind me. So rather than, you know, risk going over, just popped another one in. Before Christmas I want a bigger set of hands. So yeah, lovely fishing. At the moment, fishing 12 inch deep, just sort of 14 inch to 12 inch. Well, literally 14 inch has been the best depth. Both on my short line rig and my long line rig, once they've obviously settled down. Yeah, it's lovely to fish an afternoon match, because sort of in the daytime, especially, you know, when you get this first bit of sun, quite often in match times, like 11 till 4, they don't really want to feed, so you've got to sort of catch them next to cover. And if you're fishing 10 till 3, sort of even worse, like the hottest part of the day. So yeah, it's been really nice to fish tonight, and it's lovely coming somewhere that you don't go to very often. sort of I've heard, and we've done a bit of filming here before, like how big the average stamp of the F1s have been. They've been a real nice stamp, but I know they're even bigger. But yeah, just sort of slapping your rig over and just trying to get the fish to hook themselves against your back shot. Like, that's really important. But you don't want it too close to your float. So obviously, you know, if I dip my back shot, my float's going to sink, and you're not allowed. Again, that biggest thing is, like, every venue's got its different rules. But I'm just trying to use it to get the fish to hook themselves. Just see what signs I get. So I might caught that one. Might just have to deepen up slightly. But yeah, it's been lovely. I feel like I've learnt a lot as well for the future matches. Sort of, I've got plenty of rigs, but because I've fished with casters today instead of how I would normally fish with maggots, and again touching on like the hook bait, I've just fished a bit of a worm. It's always so good for me, this. To be honest, I don't often fish sort of banded caster very much anymore. Just tend to find like a bit of a worm, such a good hook bait. I've obviously got some, you know, I've got my bands on my disgorger so that I can hook them if need be. And I had a few red pellets with me, but just stick to almost what you know works on other venues when you go into a venue that you don't go to very often. I don't want to go, you know, changing everything. I know I've drawn a good peg today. Like, it's the same sort of wherever you go, when it's warm and you've got the wind blowing down, sort of all of the scum. You know you're going to be on plenty of fish. So we didn't get off to the best of starts, but my one match that I've had here, no, I'm not going to risk it because I've only got little hands. I can't really grab hold of them properly. Yeah, because of that one, you know, match that I did fish. Again, that day I caught shallow on casters with a bit of a worm on the hook. Back shot's just slid down a bit. So yeah, it's a case of just making sure my worm's on. You know, you haven't got to go changing everything. It's just trying to work out how the fish want to feed on the day. But to start with, you know, if you know that something works for you on other places you go, just trying to work out sort of the little things that can help you catch a few more when you're fishing. But if I come back, you know, I definitely feel like when they were deeper, my rigs weren't right. And we'll talk through that sort of in our conclusion afterwards. But yeah, it's been a lovely evening's fishing. Slap my rig over. I did catch a few when I was using my short line rig, just giving it a little tap. And sort of a couple of slaps and then go through your feeding. Just leave my rig there, just try and hold on to my back shot, so if anything rises up and grabs me hook bait, it's got just trying to get the fish to hook themselves all of the time. So again, slap it over a couple of times, just lift up and just sort of look at your back shot more than your float when you're fishing this long line back shotted rig. No bites then. I was thinking about going a little bit deeper, but the last two fish I've hooked have been in the side of the mouth, so it's not like, you know, if I was hooking them in the top of the mouth, I'd be tempted to deepen up a bit, but I feel like that's one mistake a little bit that I made, you know, a little bit early on, thinking, well, I'm not getting loads of signs, so I'll deepen up a bit, and I don't think it's been the case. They've just been sat. I think earlier on they were a little bit deeper, but probably took me a little bit. See, that one's actually hooked in the, like, with the hook point facing down, so if anything they might be a bit shallower than that. Again, just where I've got my big deep landing net, all my whole rig's in it, so when you're fishing with your back shots, just give your rig a, you know, a check over before you ship out. But it's weird, you know, if you'd have said to me at the start, what do you think you're going to catch? I would have said, well, to be honest, I think we're going to have a lovely day mugging. I don't know how many we'll catch on, you know. I'd expect to catch a few shallow on casters, but literally not had one bite mugging. There's so many carp here at the start, more to my right rather than in front of me. Just going to lower my glasses down, see if I can see the tip of my float a bit better. Just where it's gone a bit darker. Now I can see them better with my glasses on. So again, lift up, hold on to that back shot. See, from the last one, you know, you haven't got time to respond to the float going under. It's just on, just pulls the elastic out, and that's what you're trying to get, and get the fish to hook themselves. So again, a couple of slaps, make a bit of noise, move your pole tittle, follow that flow. Just sit and wait, and then just get myself comfortable across both my legs. So again, I can see my back shot, feed my casters. Oh, that second feed weren't the best. Let's just hold it. Look at that one, see that? So slap it over. I'm going to have a quick look at the time. We've got 5 minutes left. I'm just going to come back, I'm just going to shallow it up a little bit. Say the last couple have been hooked a little bit further down, just spread my shot out a little bit. So again, got that nice slow fall. That's what's so lovely about this rig, is you can play around with it, you know, change your depths, and as long as you move your back shot, and a couple of slaps. Just hold my rig, see if any fish rise up for it. Again, when you're feeding, it's trying to work out when you're getting your bites, how you're getting your bites. If you're getting more bites feeding, then you don't need to slap or tap. Whatever you know you're allowed to do on your venue. Obviously, if you're getting a lot of your bites slapping, then it, you know, makes sense to spend a little bit more time slapping your rig over. Don't know if that last one that I see, that swirl, was from a carp. So slap my rig. I'm going to feed once more. I'm just going to come back in and sort of deepen my rig up. And the nice thing about sort of fishing strung out is, as you slap your rig over, you're going to be able to get that. See there? I don't know if that's a carp in my peg. I'd rather fish sometimes a little bit deeper, sort of string my rig out, and that way I can slap it over a little bit more, but it's still going to be getting that nice slow fall. give them a chance of spodding it on the way down and grabbing it, rather than just sort of hanging it really shallow. So might just get an odd one that's a little bit higher than anything else. It will be the odd carp as well, where there's carp milling around there. Oh, see that? As soon as I deepened up, I had a little stab on my float. Didn't hook it, but sort of back to 14 inch deep now. When we started this little bit, I was at 12 inch. Just hold on to it, see what signs I get. So we haven't got long left, probably a minute and a half. But hopefully we can end on a fish. If we don't, we still have a lovely evening's fishing. Just so nice to be out in the warm weather now. You can slap your rig over and sort of follow it with your back shots. Again, if you feel like you're missing an odd one when you're doing this, obviously it's a little bit later now, but if you're missing an odd sign and they're not tightening it up, you've obviously got your back shots too far away. See, that one tightened it up, but my back shot's probably like an inch too far away from my float now. So crafty, like any resistance, feel anything when they suck it in, just immediately let go of it. So again, feed twice, leave me float there. Yeah, we've had a really, really nice evening's fishing. Little sign then. Just going to take, no, we've literally got 6 seconds. Thought I had a stab then. Slap it over. You little buggers, they're there. So crafty. Try. Again, go through my feeding. We're not going to have long now. Sure, somebody will call it all out in a second. There's one. I think we're fishing 5 hours. Yeah, fish on. See if we can just net this one. Lovely end to a beautiful evening. Lovely fish to end on. I will hold him up for you. So pop that rig down, hold him up. And just beautiful F1s. Lovely, lovely fish. So pop him down. So what we do, have a bit of a tidy up of our gear. Obviously it shouldn't be too long before the weigh-in because there's not millions of us here, but yeah, a bit of a tidy up and can have a little think about it, because as always I definitely feel like, you know, I started my match a little bit wrong, a few things from my rigs that I want to talk you through, and definitely feel like I could have caught a few more, but I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have as well. And yeah, tidy our stuff up and then see how we've got on, see what we've ended up with, and then we do our little conclusion afterwards. Talking through our rigs and bay, so starting off with our method feeder rod, opted for me 10-foot Aventus, 8-pound reel line, our standard setup, our 30-gram little guru with a long stem on it, little cut down Preston method feeder bead so it's completely free running, and then a 3.5-inch hook length of 0.18 and a 14 Kaizen. So that was our method feeder setup. Then moving on to our pole rigs, I only set up one bottom rig, and that was to fish me long kit and me short four on meat to start with. So that's 12-inch, 2 foot roughly. I'm going to say it was just over 3 foot deep. So I opted for black hydro and a long kit, 022 mainline, 2 number 8 back shots, a little 4x12 1.7mm Maggie, and then that was just shotted with a little bulk of 5 number 9 cubes, 1 number 9 cube as a dropper, and then opted for a 4-inch hook length of 018 and a 14 Super LWG, just in case I hooked an odd carp there. And then moving on to our mugging rig. So I set up 2 depending on the wind. So red hydro in our power kit, no messing around, 022 mainline with a nice long line. And our first float is an old one that I've always had for mugging. It's a Drennan Carp 4, the original blue ones. It just looks a bit different because I've whipped the eye on it, I've painted it, I've varnished them because I want these to last. And then that takes 2, 4, 6, 8, number 8 cubes underneath the float, so it's nice and heavy to be able to swing towards the fish. And then you see me loop-to-loop connection, and then I've just got a 5-inch hook length of 020 down to a 12 Super LWG, because hook bait wise I was going to fish dead maggots, live maggots, or a bit of a worm. So that was our first mugging rig. And then our second mugging rig is very, very similar, but it's just a lot lighter, so if there's no wind I can flick towards the fish and it's not going to make any noise. So again, red hydro and a long kit, 022 mainline, set similar depth, 12-inch, and this is an RW carp slapper, but it's the bigger one of the 2, and that just takes 3 number 9 cubes underneath the float. Again, the same 5-inch hook length of 020 down to a 12 Super LWG. Then moving on to our shallow rigs. So our first rig was set sort of 9-inch deep with an inch line, so I opted for orange hydro, 018 mainline, 2 number 11 shot, and then a 2-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG, a little number 1 RW dibber. So that one's 9-inch with an inch of line. And then our second rig is this one. So this one is set at 12-inch deep, sorry I just got a bit of fluff in my eye, 12-inch deep, again with an inch of line. So again, orange hydro, 018 main line, a little number 1 RW dibber, 2 number 11s down the line, 2-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. Then again, our next dibber rig, just going a little bit deeper now. So this one's set sort of 16-inch deep with an inch of line. I never actually used this, otherwise I would have changed it. So little number 1 RW dibber, and it should just have 2 number 11s down the line because I fish with a bit of a worm, but they're still set up from tunnel, so they've got 3 number 11s down the line because I was using maggots. So just take a number 11 off when you're fishing with a bigger hook bait. And then a 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG again. Then moving on to our next sort of set of rigs. This one's set at 20-inch deep with an inch of line, again orange hydro, 018 main line, little 3B8 winter Maggie, and then that's just got 3 number 12 shot down the line, 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. Then our next one is exactly the same, just set at 2 foot with an inch of line. It's shotted exactly the same. And this next one is where it changes. So this one was fishing for a little bit deeper, but this is actually me cut down 4B8 winter Maggie. So if I offer it up, just so if anyone wants to make them, you'll be able to see they're exactly the same size as my little 3B8 winter Maggie, but that's just a cut down 4B8 winter Maggie. And I think this bit's going to be quite important for today. So that's obviously the, you know, they're the same float, but they take different shots. So I'm going to get the thumbs up from Bazza once he's done his zoomy. So he's given me the thumbs up, so I know I can move him now. But with this rig, because that one is lovely, it takes 4 number 12 shot with maggots. But when you're fishing with a bit of a worm, if you're fishing with a little bit, you know, 1 number 12 off. But I've fished with quite a big bit of worm today, and I could only really have 2 number 12s down the line, and there's not enough shot down the line. Whereas with this one, instead of it taking 4 number 12s, this takes 4 number 11 shots, so I can take 1 number 11 off, and even whatever bit of worm I put on, my float's going to sit there really nicely. So initially that one was set for like tunnel where I'm fishing just over 2 foot deep, but I've actually used it today with our back shots. So again, orange hydro, 018 mainline, 2 number 8 back shots, that little cut down 4B8 Winter Maggie with just 3 number 11s down the line and a 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. Then our next 3 rigs were our long line rigs. So our first one was our little number 2 RW dibber. I set this one up this morning because I knew I'd probably be fishing with worms, so a number 2 rather than a number 1. But this one was set at 32 inches in total. That's always a good length for me, regardless of sort of the depth that I'm catching at. I just normally set this one up at 32 inch deep. So again, orange hydro, 018 mainline, 3 number 8 back shots, little number 2 RW dibber, 2 number 11s down the line, 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. So that was our shallowest long line rig. And then I set up 2 other long line rigs. So if they're a little bit deeper and when you're slapping your rig and they're watching it fall, and that's the best way of catching them, then I always set up these 2 for that. So orange hydro, this one's set basically 3 foot deep, 018 mainline, again 3 number 8 back shots, and this is our 3B8 Winter Maggie. So you'll be able to see there, I've just got 2 number 12s down the line and a 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. I didn't use that one that much for that reason, in the fact that it didn't take enough shot down the line. Whereas this one is our 4B8 Winter Maggie, again just over 3.5 foot in total, orange hydro, all same, 018 mainline, 3 number 8 back shots. But this is our 4B8 Winter Maggie, and with that float, again, I've just got 3 number 12s down the line. It's just enough to help it. If you didn't have enough shot down the line, it just didn't work that well. Again, 3-inch hook length of 014, 16 Super LWG. And then lastly, it's always been shallow fishing, our 3 jiggers that I set up. So our first one, you see there's no float stop, you don't need one here, there's no line length limit. So 2 foot in total, orange hydro, 018 mainline, our little Frank Ross jigger, and that's just got 4 number 10 cubes and a 3-inch hook length of 014 and a 16 Super LWG. These next rigs, they're all the same, but this one's set at 2.5 foot deep, and then our last one is just set at 3 foot deep. Again, all exactly the same. The only difference with actually our 3 foot rig is I've got a 4-inch hook length rather than a 3-inch hook length. And then moving on to our bait, I did bring a couple of bags of fishery micros for our method feeder. I never ended up using them, but I still brought them with me. Other baits that I brought with me, some sort of 7mm meat, and when I'm fishing for sort of a mixture of carp and F1s, this is like my metal cutter, but you'll be able to see I've got that end wire cut out, so I end up, if I hold it in my hand, again, I'll let Baz give me the thumbs up, but you'll be able to see like it's a sort of a double bit, and I love feeding that when I'm fishing for them massive F1s and an odd carp rather than all the same size. Normally when I catch on meat, those bits are normally the best on the hook. We didn't catch anything today, but I just wanted to say that. And then other baits, I had again a few white maggots, you'll be able to see they're all turning, but I had a few white maggots left over from tunnel, so I just brought them with me because I always think they're a good mugging bait. You know, live maggots, they sink nice and slow. Live or dead maggots are a bit of a worm. Then I just mixed up a little bit of coarse carp for our method feeder. And then other baits, casters wise, I've literally added up what I've used at the end of it, and I brought 10 pints with me. Again, I've had them left over from tunnel from the May festival, and I reckon I've got 3.5 pints left. So in total I've fed about 6.5 pints of casters. So some nice big fresh lanes casters. And then I wouldn't go anywhere, honestly, when you're fishing with casters. I just went into lanes this morning and just bought myself ½ kilo of worms, just so I've got a few worms for the hook. Again, other baits, a few dead red maggots for our method feeder. Again, I'd never go carp fishing, F1 fishing without those when I'm thinking about fishing with a method feeder. And then lastly, I didn't end up using them, but when you're fishing sort of casters, shallow, sort of a little red krill pellet. These are from Blake's. They're just they're a lovely 4mm, you know, they're not too big. They're just a lovely, lovely size. And if banded casters working well, worms are not the best, then a red pellet can be absolutely brilliant on the hook. So again, whenever I'm looking to fish casters shallow, our little tub of red pellets, a few worms, and then our casters. But that was our rigs and bait. Time for our conclusion. We've weighed in and I think we ended up with 228 pound. I think that's what we ended up with. Obviously it's the evening match, the light's going, so Baz is going to put the results up afterwards. But looking back at my match, I started wrong, to be honest, but it was hard being sat here and there was, I don't know how many carp, a lot, and you just think, well, I'm going to have a lovely morning mugging, you know, maybe the first hour, mug a few before they back off. By that time, would have primed me shallow line with casters, going on that, happy days. It didn't work out like that. They just sat that little bit further away, and you see from the start of our match, it was sort of dark, couldn't see anything, and I opted to fish short on meat. I did chuck my method out, and as I was messing around, because sort of I'm trying to get my rod without moving my feeder, it's just gone like that, and as I picked it up, it sort of already locked me out and snapped my hook clamp. So looking back, I should have done exactly what I did, sort of have a go dobbing. No, I'm not going to catch anything like that, then chuck my method feeder out. And why I like starting like that, to be honest, is the biggest reason is, one, you're fishing in shallow water, you've got the option of catching a carp early, you know, a few F1s early, but the most important bit was always going to be priming our shallow line. And by fishing our method to start with, that first 40 minutes, or the first half hour before we went shallow, we never had a fish in that first half hour. But I'm sure, had I opted to fish our method in that first half hour, I'd have caught a fish or two. So I made a bit of a mistake there. Then when we've gone shallow, I ended up catching a few on our jigger, and that was good to start with. But the biggest thing that I changed, and again, this is knowing the venue, as soon as I strung my 4 number 10 cubes out, rather than just having them as a bulk, and sort of feed, just hold my float there, lower it down, lower it, and then I was catching so much better fishing strung out rather than having it as a bulk. So that was, again, a little bit of a learning thing. I don't often fish a jigger. I go to places, well, everywhere I think I go to now, because I don't go to Whiteacres anymore. You're allowed an overshotted rig when you're allowed a jigger. So as you see from our match reports, very rare. I might have one jigger set up, but it's very rare that I don't fish, you know, a fixed rig and then my overshotted rig. So I feel like I've learned a little bit with that. Again, that was another big learning, in the fact that my rig was still the same, But the second I changed from having a 2-foot rig, another 6-inch, that 6-inch just keeping the pole that little bit further away, even though I was catching them, sort of slapping my rig in and around the depth we've caught on our fixed rig, it was just better keeping the pole tip away. So that was another thing that I felt like I'd learned. The biggest thing that I definitely made a mistake on is, again at Tunnel, I've just been fishing white maggots, and it's been so long since I fished casters. I just had all my rigs set up from Tunnel. Obviously I set my jiggers up and I set my long line dibber rig up. I just thought I'd just use my same rigs for Tunnel. The downside is obviously with my little 3B8 winter maggot, it don't take a lot of shot when you're fishing with maggots, but when you're fishing with a bit of a worm, you need to take a shot off, obviously, to make the float float. So my float was a little bit too light early on. And it wasn't until I went on to our 4B8 winter maggie and cut down 4B8 winter maggie, it was so much better. So again, if I had a chance to set up again, I'd have used number 2 dibbers for all my short line rigs. Then I'd have used a cut down 3B8 winter maggie for all my short line rigs at different depths. And then I would have definitely had that little 3B8 winter maggie on a long line rig, my little dibber, you know, my number 2 dibber on a long line rig, and then my 4B8 winter maggie on my long line rig, because I've been to, say, Westwood before, and sometimes when they're really shallow and you can't catch them, you know, when they feed you bait and they're swirling, fishing, even though you're fishing, say, like that float, say 14, 16 inch deep, because you've only got 2 number 11s down the line, when you slap your rig over and your float sort of sticking on the surface a bit, as it's falling, you catch them that deep, but you're fishing a lot deeper, if that makes sense. So slapping your rig over, and as you hold it, they pull your elastic out. So I'd always set up that little 3B8 winter maggie on my long line rig. But yeah, just a few little things, and I think that's the biggest thing when you go into a new venue, that it's those little bits that are going to make a big difference. Don't get me wrong, we've had a lovely day, but we could not have drawn any better today. We've got the wind blowing down, we've got more room than anyone, and with the fish being here, you'd expect to catch them. But I know if I could come back and fish my match again, I could have caught a few on a method. And then if I'd have had different rigs set up and sort of know what I know now, I definitely feel like I could have caught a few more, and that's what it's all about, learning and growing. But what I wanted to do, again, with our touching on, you know, us going to different venues, I'm good friends with Phil Canning, and sort of messaged Phil. Well, he actually messaged me because he knew I was coming here, but I would have messaged him anyway, because I know he comes here and does really well. But I deliberately didn't phone him to try and pick his brains about what's the best rig, because I'm trying, when we're going to these new venues, I'm trying to do it as in, if you've only got Facebook Messenger, I want to try and find me information out, so I'm in the same situation as you, if that makes sense. But yeah, big thanks to Phil for, you know, helping us out. That's one little tip I would always say. If someone, you know, you spoke to someone and they helped you out as such, always when you get back, just send them a little message, regardless of how you've done, say thank you ever so much, and then next time when you ask, they'll always help you out that little bit more. That's one little trick that I found. Again, when I was like, I'm not going to drag it on too much, but whenever Will asked me anything when I was growing up, I'd always tell him everything that I thought was the reason I caught more, because then when it's role reversal and you ask him a question, you get the same feedback as what you give them. So that's a great little trick that I've learned, to be honest. Sometimes you think, oh, I don't really want to tell him because I know he's so much better than me. But when you want that information back, all of a sudden it's like, instead of I fished 4 foot and I caught like this, then it's I fished 4 foot, my hook length was like this, my bolt was here, my dropper was here, this was the best way of feeding it, this was the best style of flow, this was the best line length. You get so much information back like that. But yeah, all in all, we've had a brilliant day. I'm really enjoying these, going to different places where I don't really know. It's frustrating because I'm fishing and eventually it twigs and I think, oh Paul, I wish I was doing this sooner. I know I could have caught a lot more, but I've had a lovely evening's fishing. I hope you've enjoyed this live match, and I'll catch up with you the next time we're out.